This is a response to a video Anton did this past weekend, and it was called what was it? Collection Habits, Values, and Missing Out. And he basically was talking about, I mean, I'm sure you've watched it anyway, but I'll just recap it quickly. How he was kind of in a bit of a dilemma with whether to open toys or not. He's got lots of mint in seal box toys, and in a bit of a dilemma whether to open them or not, in that part of him really wants to open that packaging and, you know, play with the toy, connect with the toy, but there's also that side that's sort of telling you in the back of your mind, you know, if you take this out of the packaging, you're going to devalue it essentially. And it's quite an interesting topic really, because we all have different approaches to how we collect. I mean, some people will rip anything out of the packaging straight away, others will only collect stuff in boxes. I'm a bit sort of in between the two, as you can see from my shelves. There's stuff up on boxes there on the top. Not all of them are sealed, some of them are sealed, not all of them are sealed. And then you've got like the loose stuff on the open shelves there. And it's a difficult one to understand really, and I can completely appreciate where Anton's coming from, because when I first got back into collecting, I was very much of the same thought process. You know, I didn't want to take something out of the box if it was particularly valuable, because, you know, I'd be destroying the value. I mean, the first thing I bought when I got back into collecting was, it's at a shop, it's over there somewhere just off this end. It's the E-Hobby Orion packs, and it's actually still got the price sticker on it. But I couldn't bring myself to open that. I still haven't opened it. But yet there are other toys that I have opened that are, you know, valuable themselves. I mean, if you've watched my older stuff, you'll have seen my Road Caesar review. Now these are pretty hard to find and pretty expensive, pretty valuable toys. Just go look on eBay and you'll see what I mean. But when I got this one, which is Braver, when I got that was the final piece of the puzzle. I had the other two already, and that one was so hard to find that the one I bought to complete the set, oh, smack the camera around. The one I bought to complete the set was still mint in seal box, that one, and obviously I've opened it. Now that toy, it cost a couple of £100, that toy, because it's, you know, Japanese only, from the Victory line, very, very rare, very hard to get, and finding one at all was difficult. So the fact that I got a sealed one sort of added to the cost of it as well. And then when it arrived, I basically sort of destroyed a lot of the value by cutting a piece of sellotape on the side, which is mad in a way. But then it's only like when you buy a brand new car, and as soon as you drive it off the forecourt, you lose thousands of pounds. So it's kind of the equivalent of that, I suppose, really. But that still doesn't really answer the question as to why we keep something sealed. And Anton talks about the value of these toys, and how keeping it in the sealed box means it will be worth more money in the future, which is true. It's always going to be more valuable if it's still sealed in sealed box. But then I started thinking about why I do it, and it's all very well increasing the value, by keeping it in the box, letting its value increase over time, so that it becomes a more valuable item than what we paid for it. But then I started thinking, yes, some of my stuff will go up in value, but I'm not actually planning on selling any of my collection, ever. It's not something having a sort of accumulated all this, it's not something I would want to part with in any way, unless times got really desperate and I had to raise a load of money and I had no other option. Then I suppose it would be something you'd have to consider, but it's not something I would willingly do. So for me to leave stuff in boxes and let it accumulate more value kind of seems a bit redundant, because it's only worth that money if you're going to sell it at the end of the day, and if you're not going to sell it, what difference does it make? So I realised that, and yet I still keep some things sealed in boxes. So I sort of came to the conclusion that obviously this isn't the reason why I keep things in the box, to preserve value. So that left me in a bit of a confused state, because I couldn't understand then why I was doing it. And because I'm, as well as that, I'm keeping things in sealed boxes that are very minimal value. I mean, you've seen that video I did where I panned around those shelves. I've got like the entire first series of Prime Cyberverse figures all still sealed, and those toys are, you're talking £4 ish for a lot of those. So even if they were to increase in value, they're still going to be relatively not worthless, but not of any real substantial value. So why keep them sealed in a box? So it clearly isn't the value issue for me personally, anyway. Obviously it can be for some people, and probably is. So I couldn't figure it out for a while, and then happened to walk into my room one day. This is the old room, that is, back at the old place, and I had those shelves that were behind me in the corner, and they were getting increasingly stacked higher and higher, and trying to balance all these different toys in there. And I had a thought. It wasn't an immediate "this is why it is," but what I thought then prompted me to kind of understand it a bit more. And I walked into the room, and I sort of glanced up at the shelf, as you inevitably do, and I just kind of thought to myself, it's starting to look like a toy shop in here. And then I sort of thought about that for a moment, and that's exactly what it was starting to look like. You know, when you're in a toy shop and you've got all the toys on the pegs, and as a kid, that's one of, quite an exciting sight, isn't it, when you walk into a toy shop and you see all the the rows upon rows of toys. It kind of brings back memories. I don't know if this is just me really, but for me, one of my sort of real memories as a child is going to Toys R Us, and there just being so many toys that it's literally floor to ceiling, and they're just everywhere. There's just the most amazing amount of toys you could ever see. It's not like that now. When you go in there, it seems a lot smaller. But as a 5-year-old child or whatever, when there's so many toys that they're out of your reach, they go that high. It feels like there's almost an infinite amount of toys, and everything you could possibly want. And so I started kind of analysing that a bit more, and just thought, well, maybe I'm just trying to recreate that kind of feeling by having all these boxed items, sealed items on shelves, so it kind of brings back memories. Because for me personally, that's a very sort of happy time in my life. There's nothing more exciting as a child, just being so overwhelmed by the sheer number of toys and choice of toys. I started thinking, maybe I'm just trying to recreate that feeling, and that's where I'm getting my value out of keeping these toys in boxes. And so I thought about it a little bit more and realised that was probably the case. I mean, I opened a valuable toy that wasn't based on value, because I knew what I was doing, and that I'd be wiping off a fair bit of what I paid for that toy, but I hadn't bought it to sit on the shelf. That one, I mean, obviously I've kept the box anyway, but I had the other two parts of Road Caesar, and I wanted to complete that. That's why I bought that. But there are other toys I bought purely to basically look nice, I think is the gist of it. I mean, for example, last year at Auto Assembly I bought this. This is Road Rage, the e-hobby collector's version. I paid a fair amount of money for that. I think I paid about £120 for that toy, and I'd really been looking for that. That was really high on my list. And so to pay that amount of money for something you're not going to take out of the box seems maybe a little bit excessive. But I love the way that looks in the box. I love these e-hobby boxes, and because they're very much in the style of the original G1 cars, which were kind of like those ones that were, as I talked about in the previous video, you couldn't really afford to buy those ones very often, certainly not in my case anyway. So they were kind of like the sort of tantalisingly out of reach toys that you wanted, but you knew you just, other than special occasions, you weren't going to get them. But to be able to buy them now and then sort of keep them looking in that kind of, in that manner that you would see them as a child and be like, oh, that looks amazing, I wish I could have that. I mean, I've got a couple more up there as well, the e-hobby stuff. And yeah, actually, I'll tell a lie, one of them is open, the Cobalt cassettes, but that's because that was open when I bought it. I was trying to track them down, and the only one I could find at the time was an open one. Otherwise that would probably still be sealed as well. But yeah, it's about for me, it's about recreating a feeling or an image that just kind of takes me back, lets me reminisce, makes me feel happy. So I don't need to necessarily take the toy out of the box to play with it to recreate that feeling. Obviously I do buy other toys and play with them as well, but there are certain ones, if they have a certain look, a certain appearance, then they almost become like a connection back to the past, to a time when things were simpler. You didn't have responsibilities. All you had to worry about was getting home, watching your favourite TV show, and playing with whatever toys you had at the time. Because, and it's not only with Transformers as well, actually. One of the things I tend to do is there are toys that I wanted as a child, and for one reason or another never managed to get, whether it be for financial reasons or poor distribution levels, so you never saw certain things. I mean, a lot of the Autobot cars I never even saw in the shops. So things like Wheeljack and Hound and Sunstreaker, you just never saw those toys. And there are other toy lines as well that I really wanted certain things and could never find them. For example, this is another toy line. I don't know if anyone remember this. I bought this a couple of years ago, and the reason was I collected quite a few of these as a kid, but this plane here, this tiger striped plane, that was always my favourite one, and we never saw that one in the shops around where I lived. They had, I think there was about 8 different sets of those, 6, 8 sets you could get like that, and we saw most of them, but not all of them, and not that one. And so it was kind of like, how can I create a link back to that feeling and sort of almost right that wrong, as it were, correct that oversight. And so I will go out sometimes and I'll pick up 1 or 2 things from lines outside of Transformers, just that I can remember wanting as a child but never being able to acquire. Another example, Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, and although this is the 25th anniversary edition, it's not an original, but that doesn't bother me. The fact is, this is like the definitive version of Snake Eyes, with his visor and his dog, and that's the one I always wanted for my G.I. Joes. I had a Snake Eyes, but it wasn't that Snake Eyes, it was like the next version, and it wasn't the same. So sort of, I think it was about last year, or possibly, it was probably last year, I went out and I tracked that down. So that was like another item kind of ticked off. And so it's not out of the box again. It's not because I want to manhandle the toy. I'm just kind of correcting things that I feel I don't want to say not done correctly, but things that I couldn't control as a child, and now I have the opportunity to go back and achieve something that I couldn't back then for whatever reason. Sometimes as well I'll keep things in package just for the reason, other than I think the packaging looks really nice, and taking the toy out would actually deface the packaging. So you can see up there my Transformers Prime first edition RC. I've got the RID version of her as well, so it's not like I don't have a version of her I can have a mess around with. But I got that, and I just think on those first editions the packaging looks so nice with that sort of blue, especially with RC being blue as well. It creates a very unified look to the packaging, and I think it would be a shame to ruin it. So that's why that one stays in the packaging as well. So I think, going back to the sort of original thing about missing out and because of the value of stuff, I think it depends really why you're keeping stuff in the package. If it's for valuation purposes, and there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. We all have our different reasons for collecting, and everyone's entitled to their own opinions and reasons. That's there's no rule to follow when it comes to collecting. But I think if you're holding something because of its value, purely because of its value, then you're kind of saying, well, perhaps I'm going to sell this at some point. And if you're not going to sell it, it seems a bit of a redundant thing to do, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, bearing in mind, and I'm sure plenty of people disagree with me, and I've got no problem with that. So, what I would say is to you, Anton, maybe come to some sort of compromise. I mean, you've got some there that are clearly going to be valuable. The depth charge will only accumulate in value because you've got the carded version. I've got the toy as well, but because it came as the membership, my Transformers Club membership, it just came loose in a foam tray, so I didn't have the kind of dilemma that you're sort of going through right now. But I would say I'm not going to tell you what to do one way or the other, but what I would do is perhaps take a good think about why you're keeping them sealed, and because I think that will ultimately determine what you want to do. And it's quite clear to me that he does what he's in that kind of state of mind where he really, really wants to play with a toy, but he really doesn't want to destroy the value at the same time. And I can understand that it's a very difficult position to be in, and especially from the fact that if you do open it, there's no going back unless you buy another one. And as he said, you don't want to be buying the same thing again when you can use that money to buy something different rather than having two of the same thing. Now, admittedly, I do have two of a few things, but it's only the little Cyberverse toys, which we're talking a couple of pounds, just so I could play with a few of them and still maintain that kind of complete series toy shop look by keeping them sealed. I wouldn't do that with anything bigger than Cyberverse personally, because you'll very quickly fritter your money away on items you've essentially already got, which in the cold light of day seems a bit silly, unless you're absolutely minted and can afford to go around throwing money around without even really thinking about it. But yeah, that's basically my take on it. And say it's I think what it comes down to is examining your own reasons for keeping it sealed. If you're looking at things as an investment, then yeah, by all means, it would be madness to open certain things. But if you're looking to get that sort of tactile payback for the investment, then perhaps it may be time to open some of those. As with the specific example, he's got the he's got the depth charge carded and the Terror Dive version at the moment. So maybe, I don't know, maybe keep the depth charge carded and open the Terror Dive. That way you still get to play with the mould. I don't know how much that figure's worth myself. I've never really looked at that one. But anything that's kind of a limited, exclusive kind of thing, as the depth charge is obviously going to be a bit more valuable over time. Obviously its value is right at its base at the minute because it's only just, in the last month or so become available. But once our kind of stocks of that run dry and get a few years down the line, then maybe it will be. But it looks quite nice in the it looks nice in that packaging as well. That would be one reason I would personally think about it. But it kind of, as I said, it depends on your reasons for keeping it in the package at the end of the day. Yeah, that's just, I don't know how long I've been talking about this now because my thing doesn't tell me, but I think I've probably exhausted the points I wanted to make. Hopefully this has been at least vaguely insightful and not at all just delusional rambling. But yeah, maybe other people have other reasons for keeping stuff in the packaging. I'd be interested to hear what they are actually. Leave a comment or something down below if you can think of any other, or you personally have got some other reasons why you might keep stuff in packaging. But yeah, I think that's basically it. I hope this has been at least vaguely helpful, Anton. If it hasn't, I do apologise. But yeah, I hope you can resolve your inner dilemma very soon, because you can see in that video that you're really quite frustrated, both with the decision and yourself for not being able to kind of decisively act on whichever one of the two paths you decide to take. So I hope you manage to resolve that fairly soon. We can talk about AA if you want. We're only a week tomorrow, so yeah, I think I'll wrap this up here. So thanks for putting up with my another sort of incoherent rambling session, and I'll see you all soon. Catch you later.